Welcome to your channel Rayofhope, and thank you so much for being with us. I'm wishing you a very happy new year. Okay, so today we're gonna cover one of the really critical bug and most common bug as well, which is broken access control. And it is one of the OWASP top 10 vulnerability, which stands at number 1. So what is broken access control means? When we talk about broken access control, is when an attacker can get unauthorized access to restricted information or system. This can happen as a result of flaws in a design or implementation or access control mechanism, as well as mistake in authentication and authorization process. Okay, so we just talk about authentication and authorization process. What are those? We will be covering. But you know what? Broken access control you often perform on 3 levels. The first one is user level, and then you have admin level, and then you have root level, which has the most privilege, or you can say all the privilege, right? Broken access control has escalated critically within realm of web application security, climbing upon 5th position in 2017 and to climb the top spot in the WAPT top 10 list by first. So now it is number 1, but it is used to be at 5th position according to OWASP in 2017. Just think how critical it is. So broken access control, when we talk about, we are talking about 3 things actually, or 4 things you can say. The first one is access control. Second one is authentication. Then we have authorization, and then we have session management. So there are 4 components of broken access control. Okay. So when we talk about first component, which is access control, what exactly mean by it? Access control determines whether the user is allowed to carry out the action that they are attempting to perform or not, right? So that is access control. When we talk about authentication, authentication is the process of confirming that the user or service who they say they are. Just a verification process over here. Then authorization, third one. It is the process of granting or authenticated user permission to do something. So once they validate that, yeah, you are the same user or you have the privilege, the service you are trying to access, after verification, this authentication process, they authorized you to perform that action, right? Then at last, we have session management, which identifies which request or which subsequent HTTP request are being made by the same user or not, right? So if you look over here at this picture, what is happening over here in authentication? You put your username, you put your password, right? That is authentication. You are trying to access some sort of services, right? So now over here, it will like a verify. If you are the same user or same person, you are trying to access the services, you are allowed to, right? And if it confirms that, yeah, you are the same, then based on that, it will give you the authorized to access the services. And if you are not authorized, then they may give an error or prohibited, right? So this is broken access control in simple. Guys, not need to confuse. If you have any sort of question related to this, feel free to comment. I would be happy to help you. And we are going to cover each aspect of broken access control, from theory to how to identify it, how to exploit it, and how to mitigate it, right? So this is how the broken access control looks like, right? Now, when we talk about broken access control, broken access control has 3 types. The first one is horizontal access control. Then we have vertical access control. And then last, we have context-dependent access control. In this video, we will be covering horizontal access control only. We will have a separate video for vertical access control and context-dependent access control. So another 2 videos will be coming out of for this topic. Okay. So when we talk about horizontal access control, what is horizontal access control? Horizontal privilege escalation or access control occurs when a user gains access to a resources or privilege of another user at the same privilege level. For example, if you look over here, suppose you are using a banking application that will allow a user to view the transaction and make payment from their account, right? But not the account of any other user. So by doing the parameter like a manipulation or anything, if you are able to do the transaction, or even if you are able to view the data of other user, so that will go into horizontal access control, right? Okay, just look over here. by looking at this picture, what is happening? Horizontal access control does not allow a user to access another user resource actions. This is user A, this is user B, right? And this is user C. So if this user working like using HDFC bank application, he can see like its own transaction, but he could not see B or C user transaction. If he can see, that's a horizontal access control and really critical, right? Okay, but let's understand by looking at the code level. Suppose you requested one services, which is https://rayofhope.com, which is a domain. Oh, indeed. And then profile ID is 123. So this is your profile ID, right? Over here, now there's another you, and this is your server responded, right? Once you requested with that, your ID is 123 and your name is Ray, and the email is ray@rayofhope.com. You got it, right? But if you change the ID from 123 to 124, and if server responded with ID 124 and the name Hope, and the email is hope@rayofhope.com, that means it is revealing the sensitive information of another user at the same level, privilege level, right? So that is horizontal access control or horizontal privilege escalation, right? Okay, so we will demonstrate it practically as well. Let's do it with us. Okay, so we talk about how to exploit it, right? Now, what we gonna do in order to mitigate it? What other mitigations do we have to implement to make sure that the application is not vulnerable for horizontal privilege escalation? You have to implement strong authentication and authorization controls to ensure user can only access their own resources, or indeed, right? Use mechanism like session management, role-based access control, token validation to ensure proper access control. Implement proper access control example means, suppose on code level, right? What we can do, if you look over here, what we are doing, suppose this is the code actually, right? For our previous request, this is the request. So over here, if you look at, this is a simple code. Over here, what is it trying to do? You logged in as a 123, and if you see logged underscore in user ID is equal to 123, right? And then requested user ID is requested.array.id, right? So same way, if requested user ID is logged in user ID, and return user ID requested ID, return either unauthorized access or 403. What does that mean actually? If you look over here, logged in user only return if data requested user ID matches with the login user ID, right? So this what is it is doing? This is making a scenario implementing access control that if requested user ID and logged in user ID both are same, only then it gonna provide the data. If requested user ID and logged in user ID is not matching, then it will throw an error or unauthorized access 403, right? So this is how it can give a solution for it, right? So this goes for horizontal privilege escalation. Let's understand this by having one example. Then you will have better understanding of it, right? Okay. So what we're gonna do right now, this is one of the application that a lab that we would need to solve, right? So over here, if we look at, if we go to our HTTP history, right? And then we have the login credential winner. We have to log into this account. Peter. Okay. So we just logged in. Okay, so you can see we got the API keys for it, right? Let's see if we are getting any response over here. Okay. It is the same request. No. My account. These are the guest requests, right? Okay, I need to just look for post request, like login. Yeah, this should be the request, right? Let's send to the repeater. We got the session ID, right? Okay, 1 second. CSRA tokens implemented. That's fine, no worries. What we have to look for over here, we can see the host API ID, right? This is the API for that, right? You can see L9. Just a moment. Proxy intercept off. Let's log in again. Provide the credentials. Okay. The shift on login. We got the request, right? Send to repeater. And we forwarded this request. Forward again. Send to repeater my account. Close, right? Okay. So now if you look over here, we are getting the ID parameter, right? This is pretty not guessable. You can't guess the ID right over here. This big ID, if you have, you can't guess it. Even if you change, that doesn't make any sense, right? So over here, if you look at the post, like this application home over here, it's look like that it is a blog kind of, right? And we have multiple posts over here, right? So if we look over here, this post, we just saw this. See what happened. This is being posted by the administrator, and we open it. Okay, back. We need to look for Carlos. As you can see over here, horizontal privilege escalation, where there to find the ID for Carlos and then submit its API key, right? So suppose if we find something where the Carlos has posted, and we find the it is also posted by administrator only. Let's see this post. Carlos, right? Okay. So let's intercept the data. Open. User ID is this, right? Send to repeater. Forward this. Okay. We got it. Right? So now, if the same thing if I do over here, right? If I go to repeater, this is what the ID we got, right? We copy this, and if we go to this was the ID for my account, right? If we change this ID and go like this, 200, okay, right? We got 200, okay, right now. So if we see the Carlos over here, we can see the Carlos is over here, and also we can find the API key for Carlos, right? So we're gonna go ahead and copy this, go to submit solution, post the API key and submit. The lab has been solved, right? So now, again, focus over here. What we have done over here, first, we identify the parameter. So over here on my account functionality, even in account has some sort of ID, right? That was my ID. But it was a blog, right? Where there everyone can post, right? Therefore, I found a post of one user, and when I open his post, I got the account ID for that, right? And if I uses that ID in my request, I got the response and API keys of his account, which is a really sensitive information. Therefore, this is a horizontal privilege escalation, where there I am able to access the functionality of same privileged user, which is other user, right? So thank you so much for watching. If you'd have any sort of question, feel free to drop a comment. And if you want me to cover any certain topic, please let us know. We would like to cover it as soon as possible. And do like, subscribe, and thank you.